welcome to another episode of Beyond the Black Rims. I'm Mars Girl.
I'm Josh Knight the First.
And thanks for returning again. I don't know why you guys keep coming back, but you do, and so that's pretty cool.
So thankfully, some of you have stuck with us to today, which is now episode 16.
And you've stuck with me through quite a number of things. One of those things this past week actually includes me actually attempting to do something about getting on this next season of King of the Nerds. And I know that sounds crazy, and I know I've got people telling me that that's dumb and crazy, and you know what? It very well might be. But, I kind of think I might want the experience if they were to want me, and if you guys were to want me. So, I mentioned it in a video on this YouTube channel a few days ago. So the uploading of videos to their contest has ended. It ended as of noon on, what is today, Friday?
Yes,
As of this recording, the contest, the entry period has ended. And I believe that technically the voting period has ended, and yet, however, it still seems you can get to a page full of votes. And actually, the votes have all reset. So I am very clearly within the top 10 as far as view count is concerned. I don't actually get to tell where I am as far as votes are concerned.
But as of this recording, tomorrow morning, which would be Saturday for us, you should know where your position is.
Very true. Now, I might not even be there tomorrow morning, or I might be there. For that reason, I'm going to go ahead and throw up the link that I do have as far as votes are concerned, and if you guys do still want to throw votes my way, then that would be greatly appreciated if you do indeed think that I'm perhaps somebody you would want representing you as a fellow nerd, as a king of the nerds, whatever. It doesn't really
wouldn't it be Queen in your case?
You know what? I'm pretty sure they actually crowned the last champion, who was a chick, as king. I'm pretty sure it just kind of stuck that way. I don't personally care. I don't care about gender titles that specifically.
You will be nerd royalty.
Nerd royalty is fine with me. If that's fine with you guys too. So I'll leave the link there. It's been an interesting experience just talking to you guys and seeing what you guys would want and seeing the other nerds there. By the way, I'm also pretty much the only one who followed their directions as far as copyright and time restrictions are concerned. I think that's deserving of something.
You get a gold star.
At least a gold star. Come on, a gold star? Jeez, come on.
Well, anyway, let's just get to tonight's show.
Okay, so tonight we're going to be discussing a few different things. For starters, you knew we had to talk about it.
It had to happen.
There was the unveil of the Xbox One, and
we're going to definitely...
Wow.
We're not even going to save that. We're going to get right into it up front.
Just wow. But tell me about the other stories we're talking about.
The other story we're going to talk about is... Long story short, Amazon publishing, through Kindle and things of that nature, they're basically going to start publishing fan fiction. Legalized fan fiction.
I don't know how
Kindle.
that would be legalized, but I'm sure we'll get into that later.
And then to finish it up as kind of a special treat, I know we already did I guess you'd call it a review, just because I thought you guys would like it. It's not like we're going to make a habit of it, but for those of you who have had the chance to see it, we will be talking about Star Trek Into Darkness.
And again, it's not something that I would like to continue showcasing on the show, because the show really isn't for reviews, but it has been kind of a big deal. I don't know what it's made in the box office lately.
84 million this past week.
So it's quite relevant. So with that all said and done, with that in mind... let's go ahead and get into these topics.
So let's get into it. Microsoft has delivered a new product.
Well, they will be delivering a new product later on this year called the Xbox One.
Okay, so this is the third thing from Xbox, right?
Yeah.
Why is it called the One?
You know what? They thought they were being cool, and they were all like... Within their campaign, they're all, oh, this is gonna be the one that revolutionizes everything you do. It will be the one that takes up your living room and does this, that, and the other thing. You're not cool. You're not cool, Microsoft. I'm sorry. And actually, I've read it argued from different blogs and places online that it probably could, in fact, confuse casual gamers or, like, you know, grandmas trying to buy stuff for their kid. And they go, Xbox One, well, that's the first one. And they don't want the first one, they want the latest one. Like, the grandma is trying. Like, you know that relative.
My grandson wanted the new Xbox. I can count, so 1 is lower than 360. I'll get him the 360.
Like,
And then you'll have a disappointed kid on his birthday.
Grandma, I have 3. But, so that's just the first thing about it. So,
Well, let's go over the look of this thing
yeah,
first.
just as I was about to do. It looks very much like a DVR, in personal opinion, which makes sense considering the things they want you to be able to do with it. The controller is very negligible in how much it has changed. They moved the Xbox button from the center middle to the top middle?
To me, the look of the controller itself looks like one of those knockoff GameStop controllers you would pick up when your real Xbox controller got busted.
That's kind of true. Aside from that, it's powerful. It's a powerful machine. But then I think it's basically equally as powerful as the upcoming PS4. So, like I said before, there is a reason why it's called, why I said that it looks like a DVR, and it's because, man, these guys would not stop talking about how much TV you can do with this
By
machine.
this point, any of you might have been linked to or seen the 2-minute mashup of all the times they mentioned the word TV in this press conference.
And all
over
the other
course of,
stupid things they said.
Over the course of 25 minutes, the one word that kept coming up, TV, 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 television, TV, TV. It's like...
TV, television, TV, TV, Call of Duty, TV, TV, TV.
Live-action Halo series.
That could be interesting, could be good. Steven Spielberg is in on it. I don't know how or why, but he is.
Bill Gates money.
Okay. He can throw his money away on that.
But see,
sort of thing.
here's the thing. That's a nice little thing, and you can get excited about it.
But what's that have to do with the games?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I don't have.
You don't have an answer.
I don't have an answer.
You don't have an answer.
No, I don't. It was cool to see Steven Spielberg. I mean, he wasn't physically there, but he was there. He was. No.
So really looking at it, the interesting thing that I'm seeing is this thing just got debuted this week, and in every single public forum I have seen no one, not a single person who was impressed with this thing.
I mean, it is an impressive piece of
hardware,
and the software included too, and the home entertainment value. I get it. Video game consoles have crossed over into territory where it is more than just the gamer market. It is a very casual market as well. But at the same time, who are the ones who are going to be rushing out there to buy it day one? It's the gamers, and they wanted to know about the games. I don't specifically care that the Kinect is going to be built into the Xbox 360, the Xbox One. I don't specifically care that I can do this futuristic Tony Stark technology stuff where I grab the air and then pull it in and it shrinks this window and I can throw it away, and then I can pull open a whole new window and then I can tell Xbox to go home. I don't really
Well, I'll say this much.
I don't
you
care.
bring up the fact that they very much marketed this towards the casual gamer. Really what
Not
I saw
even
in
the
this
gamer, just
the casual
entertainment
person,
yeah,
I guess.
Sure.
Because really what I see here is, yes, it's futuristic, but part of the futuristic take on this thing comes off to me as just I don't know if it's just me, but just the slightest bit lazy.
Well, yeah, because
Looking at it, Xbox, telling it to do these things,
Xbox
and,
TV, Xbox NBC, ABC, CBS, Xbox video games, and you don't have to do anything. Now it's very fast. It's cool. Like don't get me wrong. The idea is cool, but at the same time, we want a video game console.
right?
And so they brought up video games like sports,
FIFA,
Madden, and Call of Duty, because there's always a Call of Duty. And man, they mocapped the hell out of a dog.
Oh, that dog might get an Oscar performance for being a dog.
I mean, that's
If you get
cool,
that.
I guess.
Well, the other thing I think about too is if this technology, and this is trying to give them some credit, if this technology does take off the way they're hoping it does, we might actually see a couple of years later. You remember in Back to the Future 2 when Marty plays that one arcade game, and then we have young Elijah Wood saying, "You have to use your hands? That's a baby's..."
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now it's looking like we might actually get to that point where people don't have to use,
Well, yeah, I mean, take a look.
a controller.
They're showing all these different ways that you can use the Kinect to interact. Like, it has far better skeletal structure. It finds far more joints than it once did. It can tell which way you're facing. It can see, like, your muscle mass and how much force you're using. It reads your heart rate. It reads your expressions. This thing is Skynet, okay?
Now, that was actually something I was going to bring up, because there's the whole thing that the system doesn't actually fully turn off.
Well, the system does, but the Kinect doesn't, so that you can yell at the 360, the one, oh my god, you can yell at the one at any time and be like, "Hey, box thing, turn on and junk," and then it'll do a thing. But then people are really concerned that it poses
Basically,
a security problem.
Right, because they could
where
basically spy on you.
they could, or it could be hacked. It's entirely possible that it could be hacked. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that Microsoft and Xbox Live have been hacked. Xbox Live and PlayStation Network have both been hacked in the past.
And I'm having to remember, like, stories about, I don't know if you've heard about this sort of thing, but people playing Dance Central in less than normal apparel, and then the Kinect was still on, and then those pictures that Dance Central takes.
Well, the Kinect has to be on to play Dance Central, for one thing.
Yeah, but you know how it would post some of those pictures.
Well, yeah, but that's because you're an idiot and you leave the Xbox available to automatically send those pictures to Facebook.
Now, what will that do when this thing is always on and can make its own decisions?
Well, nobody said it could make its own decisions
Yet.
Yeah.
See, that's the key word there.
That's the kicker, admittedly. It very well could, I guess. I don't know how it would start doing that, unless it's like, hey, we recognized that you really freaking like watching this TV show. Hey, a rerun is on right now at 2:30 in the morning. We're gonna turn the TV on for you right now. Oh my god! I just got woken up in the middle of the night by I don't know what show. Enter show here. Oh jeez. Oh, you scared me, Kinect. Alright, Kinect, no. Just Kinect, turn off. No, your other favorite show is about to come on another channel. No, I don't.
No, Juan, I'm sleeping.
So I have no idea.
You don't need sleep, Dave. My name's not Dave. It is now, Dave.
I mean, there was Forza Motorsports. That looked fast. I mean, things look pretty. Things looked very, very pretty. Graphics looked good. We all know that graphics don't make a game. There was very little. There was almost no actual gameplay of any games they were showing.
Next to none.
There was,
and that worries me.
There was in-game rendering technology, real-time rendering technology being shown, but not actual gameplay. But then again, what can you expect from franchises we already know? The sports titles, Call of Duty, and motorsports. It can't possibly be that much different from what we've seen in the past.
The thing about it is they mentioned nothing about what retail price is going to be on this thing.
No, not yet. So
that'll have some say. That always has say in who's going to flock to get it.
Well, Microsoft has been known to be more expensive than Nintendo. I know Sony in the past had that same old that quote from the unveiling of the PS3 that it was going to be available at manufacturer's suggested retail price of $599 and everyone was like, what?
Now, for as much as this thing can do you see it being at least that much?
It very well could be, especially if Kinect is built in. Now they've introduced Blu-ray. It's got ridiculous processing power and 8 gigs of RAM, and it is kind of a beast. So yeah, it's entirely possible that this will be an expensive piece of equipment, especially because it so badly wants to be your entire home entertainment.
That very much is the market that they're going after, is just in general home entertainment.
Yeah, not games, never mind the fact that they were like, it's a video game console, and then they never talked about video games again.
Hardly.
And they weren't really video games
Which makes me wonder,
about.
if they really wanted it to do all these things, wouldn't they have just been better off tech demoing this thing as just an entertainment system somewhere else?
But that's the thing, though. If they did that, then nobody would pay attention, because there's a brand recognition with the Xbox.
But there's still brand recognition with Microsoft.
Well, that's true, too. But, for all the hype that, say, Windows 8 or Windows phones get, I don't think Windows phones, because they share Windows phones and tablets and Windows 8. They all kind of share similar technology, and I see that kind of technology being utilized on the Xbox One, just using your hands in the air to bigify things and then smallify things and throw things away.
You mean enlarge and shrink?
No, bigify and smallify. I knew exactly what I was saying.
Okay, just making sure.
And yet, I don't really see people necessarily flocking to Windows phones. I see people who are genuinely interested in Windows phones, but it's not, the biggest deal ever.
Right.
However, the Xbox, that's a big deal. That's something that's in tons of homes.
Well, now, yes.
Yeah, it's become home recognizable among anybody, among families.
Now, speaking of being in homes, a while back we had mentioned in another segment about it being in homes over here, but not necessarily in homes overseas in, say, Japan.
Specifically Japan, really. Because, at the time, there was brand loyalty to Sony. I think that they were upset about some dealings that they had done with Microsoft in the past, and so it just wasn't there. There just wasn't support there for it. Well, now apparently there is. I don't entirely understand. I know for a fact that this article here that we're reading on Kotaku, it says that there's a 2-second appearance by Metal Gear Solid creator Hideo Kojima, and I saw that clip right at the beginning of the unveiling of the Xbox One. I mean, that sort of sounds like it means that Japanese producers would work for it.
But basically what they're hinting at is that come E3, which is coming up on us very quickly, that they will present more of a push for Japanese support of the Xbox One.
But are the Japanese really going to care that much once time comes to actually launch this system? That's what I'm wondering about personally. perhaps there would be developer support, but will there be buyer support? Will it push sales? I mean,
but that ultimately comes down to games.
I think America is the one that's concerned about a grand home entertainment system, and I still think that the Japanese audience really wants to play their video games. I personally believe. I could be wrong.
I personally would like to just play the video games.
Yeah. But that's why I'm wondering whether or not this is really going to work in Japan, because obviously it did fail last time. What's to say that this is going to be any different? I mean, only time's going to tell at this point, I suppose.
Now, the other question being that, again, going back to the games, is the question of region locking on the games.
I haven't heard anything about that. I feel as though it would kill them to have things region locked. Really, at this point, Sony is the only company that's in the region free territory, at least with the PlayStation 3. The Xbox 360 is not region free, the Wii and the Wii U are not region free. I'm sorely upset with Nintendo because in their handhelds they dropped being region free too.
Which means we can't get things like the new Dragon Quest over here. You'd need a Japanese 3DS.
No, you'd need a Japanese Wii, because Dragon Quest X is online and it's on the Wii.
Didn't they just release one that was on the 3DS too?
That was kind of a while ago, but yes, and it's actually over here.
Okay, then I must have gotten the two mixed up then.
Yeah, I believe you probably have, but it's true, we can't play Dragon Quest X.
And that's unfortunate. And the thing is, with a system like this, which already wasn't batting that great over there, I think really it would be, to put it a certain way, kicking themselves in the nuts to not leave it open for games to come back and forth between countries.
Well, what they would have to do to get Japanese support too, I would imagine, would be to really have I might have said this before even, but it would be to have some big name company do some big name title exclusively on the Xbox One. That would definitely sell games. You would basically have to put a Dragon Quest on the Xbox One,
or at
a
least something
Final
of
Fantasy
that,
on the Xbox One.
Something of that size.
Exactly. Something of that cultural impact needs to go on that machine, or else the Japanese audience, maybe not the Japanese developers, but the audience is not gonna care.
Right.
Really, you can read up on all kinds of other different things about what this machine can do, different things that different people have said, all the different TV stations you can watch with it. The information is everywhere, and there's a lot of information on it aside from the price. Past that,
I don't even think it was a good presentation, honestly. You could
no.
see straight through the presenter's facade of happiness over this item. Like, with a couple of them, it was just really hard to believe
hey
that
guys, we're gonna have this Skype call. Oh man, it's great to be here, but just remember, I'm gonna beat you in X game here. Oh no, you're not going to. Skype, hang up. Ha ha ha, it was so funny. It was bad. It was really uncomfortable to watch, actually.
Yeah.
Aside from that, all we can do is sit and wait and hope that at E3 they actually unveil games that we're going to care about. Otherwise, I don't yet have any desire for this system, like, at all.
No, like, and even then, any of the games that I have high hopes for that have already been announced, I don't care whether or not they show up on this system. I just care that the game is looking good and available on a system I already have.
You're hoping that it makes the jump to another console, or that it's multi-platform.
Rather multi-platform, yeah.
Okay. That's about all I care to say about it, because quite frankly, the Xbox One makes me kind of unhappy.
Well, we'll see more once E3 comes around.
All right, well, I'm done.
Okay, so moving on to the next topic. This one's a little weird.
Okay.
This just came in on Wednesday.
Who are you reading this from?
It's on a site called seekingalpha.com. And you can look this up. This has been reported elsewhere, too. Basically, Amazon Publishing, that do a lot of Kindle releases and things of that nature for, books and what have you, ebooks. They have made a partnership with Alloy Entertainment, which is a division of Warner Brothers, to officially release fan works using a few specific characters from already existing properties.
Okay, so you said Warner Brothers, right?
Yes,
Okay.
a subsidy of Warner Brothers
Okay.
is doing this.
When you initially brought this topic up to me, I was kind of like, publishing fan fiction, like, how is that legal? Because you're using somebody else's characters, and, you have to go through certain rights to use their names and their likenesses. But if it's specifically, characters that they specify through this company, then it's like, it's officially sanctioned fan fiction.
Right.
Then at which point
does it cease being fan fiction if it's officially licensed?
Because isn't that just
or sanctioned, I should say?
Isn't that just what most fiction in different, like, science fiction universes are? Because, like, you get different writers who are already good at what they do. They write for things such as Dragonlance or Star Trek and Star Wars.
Well, let me just go through the story real quick, and then we'll branch out from there. Basically, what they're working on is this program where a few characters from shows like Gossip Girl, Vampire Diaries, and some other series I'm not familiar with called Pretty Little Liars will be available, and you will be able to go through Amazon Publishing, I believe, to obtain a license. And through this license, you would be, if you're a writer, you would be allowed to work on these stories, whether it be 5,000 words, 10,000 words, what have you, and then you'd get a cut of the royalties when this sells. Of course, a cut would immediately go back to Alloy, which is part of Warner Brothers, but then you would get a cut too.
Okay, I assume the larger of the cut goes to Warner Brothers.
Yes.
Oh, of course. I mean, that's just how the industry works. Okay, so anybody, are they just going to publish anybody? I mean, is there any sort of filter system to who gets published, or do they not care?
What they're saying you can do, and it's already available, you can go to amazon.com/KindleWorlds to sign up for these licenses, and from there you could figure out what kind of story you wanted to write, or if you already had one, put it up there. Now, really you can take this one of two ways. One way being, this might be a whole new way to get writers known and published and what have you.
I mean, it is good in that sense. I would agree with that.
In that sense, that's pretty cool, If, you're a struggling writer and you've been waiting to get something off the ground, you could do something like this. However, when I initially brought up this story to you, you came up with something very easily once I showed you how this worked.
Yeah, like, there wasn't even a question in my mind, like...
Well, go ahead and explain.
Well, why would I not be like, I could just get in on this cut of money and just, like, write whatever I want, I don't actually know much of anything about these shows. All I gotta do is sit here and watch these shows, right? And then just write fan fiction, just as any fan would write fan fiction. And, like, I don't even have to like the show, okay? And I can just be like, that. I want to write about that. And then just see who buys my crap. Because super ultra mega fans will, like, read stuff like that. And, you know what? Why don't I just do that? Why don't I see where it goes? Why don't I see who buys my crap? And see how much money I can make off of it.
In other words...
so anybody could do that, In
other words, this system, while nice in idea, could very easily be taken care of to where any hack could do a written work and then get paid for not even really trying.
Yeah, it could. I can't quite tell from that article. I would really hope that they have, like I said, some sort of filter for what actually gets published. But considering these are things that are probably only going to be sold for like 99 cents or maybe $1 or $2, then I'm sort of feeling like that's not actually going to be the case, and that they'll just take whatever and...
Well, because the case that we need to look at here, sadly enough, I say sadly enough, for my own reasons, but you look at 50 Shades of Grey, which started out as fan fiction.
Yeah, and then they just changed some names, one or two little tweaks here and there, and then boom, it became its own thing. But you replace...
And a bestseller.
Yeah, you replace those things, though, and it becomes about Bella and Edward all over again.
Right. Because for those of you who don't know, it originally was a fanfiction work of Twilight.
So there you go. It's obviously there has become this market for fanfiction writers. I've actually noticed the trend rising quite a bit lately, especially in the teen romance and teen action whatever sort of genre. And
you can find these sections at Walmart or Target or Barnes and
huge.
Nobles.
They're huge. And I pick up a book and I turn it over and I read about the author, and it's like such and such a lady, because it's always a lady. I know that's a general broad sweeping stereotype, but come on, yes it is. And then I read about it, such and such a lady lives in X location with her 80 bajillion cats and her man thing, and has been writing fan fiction for 10 years. And I'm like, oh no. They've unleashed... What is it that they've unleashed? I mean, don't get me wrong, some fanfic writers are really good. And here's the problem that I have, and it's a genuine problem as far as art is concerned. Not just writing, but, you find this at artist alleys, at conventions and stuff too. It is very difficult to sell your own unique thing without kind of riding the coattails of a pre-existing thing. Thus, a fan artist in Artist Alley will sell fan art and very little of their own art to start with, hoping to hook somebody into their art style and then start selling their own art. Some people do just want to draw nothing but 80 bajillion clouds making the same face at Sephiroth making the same face.
Face all same! Face all same!
Face all same. But most people would rather be doing their own work.
Well, it's kind of the same thing even with music. You can write your own songs, but really, sometimes what gets you noticed isn't so much your own original song, but your cover of a pre-existing song.
Exactly.
It's that same argument.
Or, also, for example, many songwriters... nobody would care who the writer was, so they have to pitch it to a pre-existing artist to sing their music for them.
Right.
So the industry is really unfortunate and really sad. So I see this kind of getting skewed in one of two directions. One being really good for people who are legitimately looking for an audience, who they know they can write, they know they want to write, and they know they want people to read their works. But then on the
flip side, we could have somebody basically rewrite My Immortal and sell it.
Yeah, exactly. And I have no idea whether or not Amazon is setting up some sort of a filter for who gets published, and that would be atrocious if they didn't. Maybe I'll look into it some more, just because I'm not lying. I'm seriously considering just sitting down and watching a bunch of, I don't know, what, Charmed? Is that a thing? Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying that it's a... Basically, what you're saying, the potential to happen is this. If this thing takes off and they allow for more licenses from other shows, you could easily watch a show that Warner Brothers owns, enough episodes to understand the characters, throw a story together, even if you don't like the show, and then see if it sells.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I will totally do that just as an experiment, just to see if it would work. I would do it.
Do you think it would work?
Uh,
We would have to find out.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just it's hard to see when, being in the culture as it is, and fan fiction. At some point, everybody's written something nowadays. If you're a fan of something,
have not.
you may have not. I know I used to write small things back in the day, but then I got over it. Is what I say. That wasn't my outlet. For a lot of people, that is their outlet. Mm-hmm. But I'm hard pressed to see the silver lining in this, because it's real easy to see how this could be either taken advantage of, or any sort of whatever could be published.
Oh man, imagine all the officially sanctioned Mary Sue stuff. Just imagine.
I'm a self-insertion character in insert series here, and I'm in love with insert main character here, and we love each other.
And then it sells. Okay, like that's the crazy thing. Like somebody actually manages to sell it. Then that character like spins off into its own monstrous existence within fandom, and it's like, what is this beast that you have created, Amazon? What is this?
Do you even know what you've unleashed?
I feel like they do, and they don't understand what they're doing.
They're just trying to, I guess, from a business standpoint, tap an untapped market.
Oh, absolutely.
What they feel is an untapped market.
It is kind of smart. I'm not gonna lie. It's
kind of smart, but it has the potential to get real stupid real fast.
So they just need somebody put in place to keep other people in their place, because other people, people are going to try and submit the dumbest crap just to see if they can get away with it. Now, what I was considering doing wasn't just like, I'm just gonna write something completely dumb, but somebody out there will, because they think it's funny, and that's the only reason why they want to do it.
Uh-huh. Well, then maybe if this gets off the ground, then you should try it out, just to see what happens.
Well, yeah, let's just see. Let's just play with it for a bit.
Maybe. Okay, so I guess that covers that section.
Yeah, I guess so.
So same as last time, we're going to give you guys the warning. If you'd like, you can go ahead and stop listening here. I would highly recommend, if you have not seen Star Trek Into Darkness, or you do not want spoilers, and I do mean this, and I know Kaylin agrees with me, please stop listening now.
Yeah. In fact, if you haven't seen certain parts and certain pieces of the original Star Trek series, and perhaps certain movies in the original Star Trek series, you may want to stop listening now. We're at, what minute marker? We're at, 38 minutes, almost exactly. Okay, stop what you're doing. Just shut up. The episode's over, okay?
The episode's over. Or you can pause it, go to the theater, watch it, and then come back and hit play.
Okay, have you guys done that? Have you done... I'm serious.
Have they done it?
I'm going to assume they've done it by now, because they can't tell me.
Yeah, they haven't told us, but we've given them plenty of time.
Okay, so, Star Trek Into Darkness.
Right off the bat, I loved this thing. Loved it.
I have to say, I'm shocked. I am really shocked that this is a movie that I have fallen in love with the movie. I'm shocked that I've fallen in love with it, for one thing, and then also shocked that everybody else seems to have the exact opposite opinion from me.
It's the weirdest thing, because most people loved Iron Man 3 and we didn't like it, and then this movie, we love it, and then everybody's like, it wasn't that great. And it's like, did we see the same movie?
Okay, I want to start by talking about the experience of being in that theater for one thing.
Okay, yeah, we'll talk about that first.
Because we one day Goodwilled these really silly, kind of crappy original Starfleet from the original series
If you look on Twitter, you can see the picture.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't think we looked half bad for
I think I looked pretty dang good, to be honest.
Yeah, and I mean, I looked show accurate.
Yeah.
So, and people loved it, They wanted our pictures next to the posters and
Right.
the standees.
So we go to this midnight showing, and we had a very emphatic audience. They knew what they were there for.
There were other people wearing the shirts. There were other people wearing the costumes. And this was almost a full theater, and it was midnight, a day bumped up from what it was originally supposed to be released at, and we went to see a 2D showing, not a 3D showing.
And it was still packed.
It was packed, and this was a lively audience. This was an audience that was thrilled to be there.
And more importantly, this was an audience that knew the material, and you could tell.
Mm-hmm.
Because, look, we had the good fortune to go to a theater around here that was able to have basically this little pre-show ahead of time that showed all this Star
If
Trek.
you guys ever get the chance to go to an Alamo Draft House, which I understand is branching out across the country very slowly,
Do yourself a favor.
go.
It's one of the few
It's-
plugs we'll ever do on this show, but yeah, it's worth it. Point being that they had the little preview show, and there were all these Star Trek centric clips from the internet and old documentaries and things like that, and everybody was in on the joke. Everybody knew it was up, and then the movie starts. Now, right off the bat, just going back to the last movie, J.J. Abrams, not as a Star Wars, not as a Star Trek fan, goes into the series and manages to update these characters in a way that makes them, I guess I would say, relevant again to people who might not have been familiar with the series. But if you are familiar with the original 60s series, you can appreciate what he's done. And then this movie, Into Darkness, takes that and then goes to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
With not just the references, but the manner in which he did it. In that the whole time travel thing in the last movie set it up to where he can take elements from this, elements from that, and still make it plausible.
It is definitely his Star Trek, and yet at the same time it's still the old Star Trek.
Yeah.
I know that sounds really strange, especially because everything is different now, because Kirk doesn't have family. He didn't grow up with family. There is no more Vulcan.
Although there is a planet that's being recolonized.
So that leaves room, because time has been changed so dramatically, that we can get sameness and yet get something fresh and new stories that couldn't possibly be done anymore in the old universe, the old original universe, which when the first movie originally came out, I was really...
You were iffy on the first one.
I was iffy. It was a good movie, but I was still like, I'm not so sure I'm happy that we have a separate Star Trek universe. I'm not so certain I'm thrilled with that. But this was good. This was a throwback to things that you already knew. This treated you like, oh, you guys already know this material? Here, let's make you happy. And usually I wouldn't care for something that perhaps you'd call it fan service in that regard.
Yeah, it would be.
But it was...
It was well done fan service.
I thought it was well executed. There's a lot of people who are saying otherwise, though, that they did not like the execution of a lot of throwbacks that were placed in this movie.
And real quick, I'll say as much to the one or two surprises as far as casting goes that I wasn't necessarily expecting. Like, right off the bat, you see this guy who works for Starfleet get approached by the character John Harrison, played by Benedict Cumberbatch. And for those of you who are, Doctor Who fans, you'll recognize him as the actor Noel Clarke, who played Mickey, one of the companions of the Doctor. And I didn't even know he was in this movie, so that was a nice surprise. On top of that, when in the movie, when Spock gets assigned to a different ship, I forget what the name of the specific ship is. I see the actor come out and he introduces himself to Spock, and real quick I'm like, I know that voice. And the voice belongs to the actor Beau Billingsley, who some of you might know as Jet Black from Cowboy Bebop. And I didn't see that coming from anywhere, so as the nerdy part of me is like, oh my god, there's Doctor Who references in Cowboy Bebop in my Star Trek,
Yeah, I hate that, by the way.
I know, but I digress. A lot of people might not have picked up on that was Beau Billingsley.
I mean, that's it is cool that those people are in those movies, but I just don't like the idea of, wow, there is Doctor Who and Star Trek now. They totally coexist because of this.
No, I don't need to do that. There's comics for that.
No.
But anyway, getting back to it, I guess we've held off on the meat of what we've been trying not to say out loud long enough. So I'm gonna jump right into it. So right when this
I almost don't want to say anything, but we gotta.
Well, we got it just so we can talk about it. Benedict Cumberbatch originally was listed in every bit of information at the press junkets as John Harrison.
Everybody was like, "That's not your name, is it? That is not your character's name, is it? Who are you?
You can't be." And there were plenty of fan theories as to who it could be. We had our own because, there were any number of original characters from, the initial first season that they could have pulled from. I mean, they pulled Pike back for the first movie. Mm-hmm. This could be, Gary Mitchell. This could be even Gary Seven, even though that wasn't very likely. But who knows? Abrams had his own thing. And then they get to the interrogation scene with him and Kirk, and then he starts mentioning certain juicy things that you're going to recognize.
Then you start seeing, like, oh, we've got a crew. They've been cryo-frozen for 300 years. And I'm like, oh my god, oh my god. And there is a very definite buildup of, he knows exactly what he's building up to. He knows exactly what the fans want to hear. And then he gave the fans exactly what they wanted to hear. My name is Khan. And that theater
erupted.
Whoa! Whoa!
And one fat guy up front in the very front row stands up, I freaking knew it! And then promptly sits back down. So, yes, he's Khan.
And that's the thing. In that very energetic theater, nobody was mad that this guy was Khan. Nobody was mad. Nobody was like, oh, he's too white to be Khan. Why has it got to be a white guy? Or the original guy wasn't white, and so it's not, it doesn't go with the continuity. That's a huge continuity. Nobody cared. It was just cool.
Bottom line, Benedict Cumberbatch played the hell out of that role. He made it his own.
Like, that's the thing. Can we just get one thing straight here? These are, like I said before, it's very nice, very sweet to reference original Star Trek, but this is its own Star Trek. Therefore, these two Khans, much like any interpretations you could take of the Joker within the Batman universe,
right.
These are different Jokers. These are two completely different Khans, and neither one is necessarily better than the other. They are just two good Khans.
Because I'll say this much: I'm not saying by saying he did an awesome job in this is not to say that I don't like Ricardo Montalban's performance. I actually really like his performance as Khan. But the thing about it is they play them two separate ways. Whereas with Ricardo Montalban, you had this animal magnetism and this suaveness to him. That he was able to exert power just with his words. And you don't necessarily see him do too incredibly much. He gives a lot of orders, but you still find him threatening. Whereas here, yes, Khan could talk his way into just about anything. If Kirk had never found out about, who he really was, he probably could have gotten anything he wanted on the Enterprise. But at the same time, we're shown the physical nature of being this enhanced, genetically bred human, and you see he can mess somebody up.
I partially believe that the way that the original series had been set up, when Khan was first introduced in the episode Space Seed, you're told that this guy was bred to do all of these things, but fighting wasn't originally what Gene Roddenberry really wanted out of the show. They just occasionally had to include some fighting to hold the audience's attention because that's what TV producers wanted.
Right.
He really just wanted a lot of intellectual stuff, a lot of speaking. So there was a brief fight near the end of that episode, Kirk and Khan. And I really don't think, the fights weren't all that well choreographed. We all know that about the original Star Trek.
Right.
It was far superior in that of the intellectual sort of area than it was in the action area. And it always has been. The thing about this universe and putting it in the hands of a different director is that we can see the story told in a different way, shown in a different way, executed differently than
and at the same
original
time,
series.
it's still equally as emotionally and mentally effective.
It can be. I still think it was far more of a, oh, this is so cool, we get to see this and see... It's a lot more show than it is tell,
Well,
I believe.
I reference in specific the end of the movie, which, if you're already thinking about it, they've already gone for Wrath of Khan with including Khan, which also, if you know your history...
It's almost more just Space Seed, though, because they've introduced him waking up from... Him and his crew, and the cryo-freezing, and not so much the sending him down to another planet to just go and be without getting in the way of other people.
But the Wrath of Khan aspect, and you know what I'm talking about...
Yeah, I do.
...is the whole thing of a death on the Enterprise. Now, I really hate to say this, I really do, but a lot of people actually have made a big fuss about this in forums and things of that nature, and I just kind of, I guess, wanted to defend it. Mm-hmm. The choice is that, and of course this is a major spoiler, things are a little different than what you would expect from if you've seen Wrath of Khan. Rather than Spock being the one to bravely sacrifice his own well-being to go and start the reactor over, it's actually Kirk doing the saving, putting himself in the path of harm in this reactor.
Now, see, where everyone was all concerned, because you hear right at the beginning of the movie Spock saying, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And so you're kind of going, where is this going? This means bad news, doesn't it?
Right.
Which it did, but we didn't really know in what capacity. One thing, I think the only thing that I really have any gripe on is that, and it's half gripe, half awesome, is that we got Leonard Nimoy to cameo once more as Spock for like a second.
Mm-hmm.
And he just... And it's cool. The thing is that he just kind of shows up out of nowhere during a really perilous moment, and he's kind of like, hey guys, sup? Just thought I'd call in and say...
No, Spock called him.
Yeah, that's
New Spock called him.
Oh, is that how it went?
Yeah, New Spock called him because he wanted information on who Khan was.
All the same, though, it's just kind of like, oh man, here we are, we're just gonna throw you in there for a second. I mean,
well, I think it's a little weird in the aspect of...
On top of that, he even gives him the information of... He says, now I said I wasn't going to tell you, but... And then he tells him all about Khan, and he says there was a great sacrifice made in order to defeat him. Like, did he stop the conversation there?
Well, no,
Or did he tell him exactly what happened? Because if he told him exactly what happened, the crew didn't seem like they weren't acting like they just heard what had to be done the last time.
Much less the crew freaking out of Spock. Why are there two of you?
That's right. I guess most of the rest of the crew didn't know that there was an older Spock walking around.
Even if they didn't know, they knew then.
Well,
because he refers to him as Spock.
Yeah.
Unless, New Spock told him, told the crew, that's just like my uncle.
Your uncle named Spock.
Yeah, it's a family name.
Well, actually, it is his family name. You know what? Never mind.
but anyway, we have that climactic, very dramatic scene between Kirk and Spock, and that remains the same no matter which version you're watching. The thing about it here is that, it's just a difference of who's on what side of the glass. And yet...
And it's almost entirely mirrored, nearly word for word.
Nearly word for word. Some of the wording changed ever so slightly. And yet you've got those key things to be said in there, about friendship, about sacrifice, about doing the right thing, and that audience,
That
again,
audience was sad.
I ain't gonna
Again,
lie.
it was a very emotional audience.
But then on top of that, I didn't think they were gonna go for it. But then as soon as Kirk has passed for the moment,
And it's by the way Khan's fault. And actually, I was like, oh, he just died. And Spock is actually getting really emotional, which he shouldn't be because he's Vulcan and he's always
well,
fighting.
he's only
that-
half Vulcan.
Yeah, well, he's half Vulcan, but he's always fighting the human part of himself. I don't know why.
Which is actually a big part of this movie.
But I'm like, he's getting really emotional. What are you gonna do? Who caused his death? I know where you're going. I know where you're going. You want to say it. So say it. Come on, Spock, say it.
And you wanted him to say it.
And then there he goes. Khan!
And again, the audience.
That audience was thrilled. And so I don't understand the people who are coming out of it and later going on the internet saying, that part was so lame, and it wasn't nearly as good as the
Shatner.
original Shatner
Okay, let me
delivery.
defend that for a second. Shatner's take on that line is parodied more often than it's actually seen for what it was. Shatner's Kirk was stranded. He had a couple of red shirts killed. He was in a desperate position, but it was more out of frustration.
Because he couldn't do anything, because he was in the middle of nowhere, unable to accomplish anything. On top of that, Shatner is primarily very classic style acting.
Yes, he's very classically trained.
Stage and the screenwriting style was just completely different. This is a guy who did Twilight Zone, and the writing was just far more wooden, and he's been that kind of an actor forever.
He's built a career on it.
And so has all of Star Trek, really. That's how all of Star Trek had been acted up until this point, Well, really up until, I would say, the series Enterprise.
Yeah.
And it's just different, and I don't think people like that it's different. And typically, I wouldn't have either. And yet, here I am.
I felt the
trying to
line was
tell
more
you-
justified this time.
Yeah, because there was an actual loss, and it could be tied back directly to Khan.
And then not only that, you see this raw emotion from Spock, but then he went after the Ma, and
then there was a cool fight, and I'm not gonna lie, usually I'm like, oh, it's just an empty fight, I don't care, but I felt attachment
there was
to
a
the
visceral
reason...
feeling attached to that fight because he's there to avenge his friend.
And then it just helped that the fight I actually thought was really cool.
And it was very well shot, well choreographed, and yes, I know we don't have very long, so we're gonna have to wrap this up. But the Deus Ex Machina they end up using here to bring Kirk back, they had to bring Kirk back because, of course, yes, they're going to want to make more of these movies. Not
Perhaps
only that,
if there's even any room left in Abrams' library of time, of Star Wars, whatever.
yeah, now that he's got his Star Wars responsibilities now, but it was what it was, and I don't necessarily hate them for it.
I don't either. I think
it's fair. I'm willing to give him the leeway. He told a great story.
I want to see the movie again.
I honestly do want to see it again.
I really do. We really have to stop talking, otherwise this is going to run way far over. I'm glad you guys were able to stick with us as long as you did. If you stuck through all the spoilers and stuff, go ahead and let us know what you guys thought of the movie. Again, we've got links to our Twitter accounts below, and there's also a link to this voting for King of the Nerds, if there is in fact still a reason to vote come tomorrow morning. So, that having been said, I am Kaylin.
And I'm Josh.
And thanks for listening in to us on Beyond the Black Rims. You guys have a good one.
And we'll see you next week. Next week. Next week. Next week. Next week. Next week. Next week.